Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Min's Minutes Modcast. Now, time is pressing, and we have a super special guest today. It's Mark. Hey, Mark.
Hey man, how you doing?
Doing well. Right, so my first question is you've been an entrepreneur your whole life. Why? And what advice would you give to anyone who's considering becoming one?
Um, well, why did I do it? I don't. Let's see. I was born and raised about 2 hours north of Silicon Valley, and so I guess I was within earshot or the echo chamber of kind of seeing that stuff more than most people would at a young age. Now, what I thought was, it seemed like these people were inventing the future, and they drive really cool cars. So that was like the extent of my young version of why it was important. But yeah, I think I'm not sure I realized it as much at a young age, but it did happen to me relatively quickly, kind of in my teens, where I realized I had a vision that was different than others, and there's a bunch of skills that people wish I had that I don't have, that I need to have people around me that do well. But the seeing the vision, seeing the future was something that I was intrigued by, and so I've always kind of pursued it. And then I realized that I actually had a knack for it. So um, yeah, it kind of led me to startups. And as you know, I did the service thing first. So before I did startups, I did 6 years in the army and special ops, and jumped out of planes and did fun stuff. And but when I got out, my destiny was kind of cast in stone, because the first real startup that I got involved in scaled quite significantly, and we went public, did an IPO on the NASDAQ. And so it just gave me a real intimate firsthand, view. I wasn't just a part of that company, I was a senior executive from day one. So I was able to see what it looked like to go from cleaning the bathrooms and dialing for dollars for any kind of revenue, into scaling it into a global organization and ultimately being publicly traded. So it was almost like the entire dream process of building a company and having this massive exit. I was able to live through that whole journey. And there's things that were magical about it. There's things that are, man, we were really smart. There's a lot of things about timing, lucky breaks, perseverance. There's a lot of things that go into it, but I was able to see it up front and personal. And when the market changed a few years later, and we were in good company, Amazon went down to 93 cents a share. So it was a really crazy time to watch, I don't know, hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars of net worth disappear in the market during .com 1.0. But most of my colleagues at the time, my peers, were my age now. And I was, 25, 26-year-old Mark. So I just kind of, at that moment, swore that the lessons of that experience would never be lost. And I was grateful that I was young and I had a whole career ahead of me, and I could go out there and figure out how to do it again. And I also had some very close friends of mine and colleagues and peers that were suffering through, watching an implosion like that. And I also kind of said to myself I was going to honor them by, taking these lessons and, realizing I'm at a different spot in my life, and go out there and try and figure it out and do it again and again. So that's what I've been doing. What advice would I give people? I don't know. I think there's doing a startup today is different, and maybe even easier than it's ever been. So I would say early when I started my career, like, you really had to raise money because you had to pay for servers and things that you could spin up on AWS right now with your eyes closed, maybe with some free credits, And the explosion of AI in the last couple of years, you can do things now at a fraction of the time, and that combined with global outsourcing, and not just low cost sourcing. And some of the best people in the world have moved out of Manhattan, and they're working out of Bali now. So you have really this diverse talent base that you can tap into in a way that you couldn't when I started my career. So I think it's easier than ever to start up a company. Here's what I'd say: if you have it in you and you want to give it a shot, just freaking do it. Don't live with any regrets. Surround yourself with some folks who've done it before. You're going to save yourself a lot of scars. But yeah, don't wonder. Don't wonder. Go out there and give it a shot. But if you're wondering, should I go startup, or should I go corporate, or should I do something else? I tell you to think long and hard. The startup game has got a lot of it's kind of like just choosing to be a gambler. I mean, that's a really wrong way to phrase it, but gamblers have glorious moments. They also have horrible moments, you know. And I have a home in Vegas and lived there for a long time, and know a lot of people who were quite accomplished gamblers. But the casino will always say there's two types of gamblers. There's gamblers who've lost, and there's gamblers who haven't lost yet. And I do believe that's true. It's a rough world. If you're in the startup game long enough, you're gonna get your teeth kicked in, and it's gonna be things you didn't see. It's gonna be an investor with bad intentions. It's gonna be a market shift you didn't see coming that makes your space really unpopular. It's gonna be something you spent 3 years building and a lot of investor dollars, and somebody open sources it and it's better. It's going to be things like AI. AI has invalidated, especially the GPT movement, has invalidated hundreds or thousands of startups that had spent years building something that now was no longer novel. So I think you have to go into it with your eyes wide open. You actually have to enjoy the journey, and that's the way I look at it. That's why we did the studio. I enjoy the journey of trying to get things right, learning, getting pissed off they're not right yet, trying to solve them. And I love that feeling when you finally do. To me, it's just a really glorious feeling of letting you know that you solved it. And I know if you do that enough times, the money comes, but you could talk to me now for, 100 years and you're not going to hear me talk that much about money. I just know if we get this right, my shareholders are taken care of, my executors are doing well, and I'm doing well. So
brilliant.